Court case reveals underground network of FGM practitioners. In Michigan, on September 16th, federal prosecutors announced that the Michigan-based physician Dr. Jumana Nagarwala was part of an underground network of physicians in a close-knit community of Indian Muslims that had been performing female genital mutilation, or FGM, on minors. Dr. Nagarwala, an emergency room doctor in Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, was arrested in 2017. She was charged with performing FGM on 2 children aged 6 to 9 in Livonia, Michigan. After 2 months, Dr. Fakhruddin Attar, the clinic owner, and his wife, Farida Attar, were charged for conspiring in the performance of FGM. Prosecutors added that Dr. Nagarwala traveled to Washington, D.C. to perform FGM on as many as 5 children. Federal prosecutors also disclosed 2 female physicians were carrying out FGM aside from Dr. Nagarwala. The physicians were based in California and Illinois.
Wow. Think about how badly people want this, that they go through all of this illegal stuff to be able to get it. What's going to be their punishment?
Well, this is actually very disappointing in my opinion. So basically, the charges that were actually against them in terms of mutilation and stuff, those charges have been dropped because this going up through the courts, it reached a federal level, and a federal judge basically said that the previous laws that were on the books outlawing FGM were illegal. They did not stand, and that this is only relevant on, or it can only be applied on a state-by-state basis. My understanding is the reasons why that was actually entirely struck down because of this case is because of more of a procedural issue. But don't quote me on that. So technically, their original charges were dismissed against them. But now they have new charges, not charges, indictments. They're facing new indictments regarding witness tampering and trying to intimidate witnesses. The federal prosecutors are now trying to argue that they would go to other people who are practicing this, tell them to not talk, tell them to shut up, to keep low, and they're now trying to get them with indictments on obstructing justice, obstructing a federal investigation, etc. But the actual charges of doing this to children have been dropped because of the legal background.
And is it not going to come back? Like, is it not going to be a second attempt or something?
No, because they were originally charged under what was a federal law, but then the federal judge actually struck down that law as it stood. And then because of this case and because of that happening, Michigan put into effect a new law that makes it much more strict, gives it a much larger sentence, criminalizes both doctors and parents transporting children to get this practice done. However, that came into effect after that federal law was struck down, and they can't retroactively be charged under a law that wasn't in place at the time. So now there's a new act in Congress called the Stop FGM Act of 2020, which is trying to be a stronger federal statute.
Help me understand this, okay? Why are there already existing laws not already enough? Why is it that from every part of a child that you could go cut and get punished for it, the genitals are the least likely for you to get punished for it. Like if you did this to any other body part of a child,
Or an
the
adult.
already or an adult, the already existing laws will destroy you. But any part of a body, you go force a child to cut them, you don't even need to introduce new laws. You cut a child and you go to jail for it. But when you do that to the genitals, all of a sudden you need new laws. The already existing laws don't apply. Even if there's a punishment, the punishments are less. What is it about? Shouldn't it be the opposite? What is it about the genitals that cutting them makes them less of a crime? Shouldn't it even be more of a crime, given how sensitive and how dangerous it is? Like if you went and cut like the small finger, the tip of the small finger of a child, okay? The medical complications for that or the risk to the child's health is less than when you cut their genitals. However, if any parent or any doctor went and cut the tip of the finger, the small finger of a child, you don't even need to introduce new laws. These people will go to jail and people will be horrified. What, like, why is it? Explain to me why the already existing law is not good enough for these people to go to jail forever. I mean, not forever.
So
I don't know.
there was a federal anti-FGM. My understanding is that there was a federal anti-FGM measure on the books as of 1996. Okay, this case came about. What?
Okay, sorry. Again, my question is, why do you even need an anti-FGM law? This is cutting children. Cutting children by itself should be against a law that already exists without even an anti-FGM rule. Like, why is it that we make exceptions for genitals when they're getting cut? This is what I don't understand. Go on.
So I believe it's to have this be its own crime, penalized in its own specific way. So this is me just speculating in theory that this would carry potentially maybe a more severe punishment than doing it in another any other form of bodily harm, or it like the one that is now coming forth in Michigan because of this case and what previously happened with the laws that were standing, where the transporting of a child to get it done qualifies as being penalized under that code. Does that make sense?
I mean, it explains the situation, but it doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like it would make sense to me that if the laws you wouldn't need a separate law, and that these people would all be. You wouldn't even need a court case. You wouldn't even need a court case if you're cutting children. These people would be arrested. I mean, they would be. I guess there would be trial, but it would be so easy. It would be just go through immediately. Like this is here's what I'm saying. This is only a challenging court case and a topic for debate because of religion. Do you know what I mean? Like it's religion that protects the cutting of genitals. And if this wasn't this is religious privilege. Religious privilege allows people to get away with cutting children's genitals beyond, and we don't have religious excuses for cutting any other part of someone's body. We don't. And that's why the punishment for cutting any other parts of your body would be severely higher and less defendable in law, because there's no religious justification for it. But when it comes to genitals, because of religious privilege, this is all of a sudden becomes a legal challenge. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, I believe that the issue of this on the federal level and why it was ruled unconstitutional has more to do with I can't remember what it is exactly, but something like commerciality across state lines, like it was a weird state lines issue. It was almost more procedural. It didn't have to do with any practice-based objections to the law.
Do you think that this would not, the punishment, like what you're saying, there's technicality and there's other things that made this a challenge. Do you think that with all that taken into account, if these people were a cult that were just meeting and their crime was they would be cutting the left hand of every child, okay, the left hand, do you think that this would have been like, oh, there was these people would be still not in jail and because of procedural technical issues, or do you think all of these people would be in jail right now, the parents, the doctors? Like I understand what you're saying. You're saying that these people are getting away due to technicalities, but I have this suspicion that none of these people would have been already in jail if there was any other body part that they were cutting.
That's difficult. I think part of what makes it complicated is the aspect of a doctor doing this in a medical setting.
Again, if they were cutting other body parts of children in a medical setting, I still think that they would be in jail. All of them would be in jail right now. That's what I think. And I think the reason why they're not in jail when you're cutting genitals instead of other body parts is partly to do, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, is with religious privilege. Yeah. I do want to highlight some comments unless you want to say something.
Yeah, no, I just kind of want to give people some more specificity and some hope. So although the previous one that was on the books was declared unconstitutional, Congress has since passed a new and tougher federal FGM statute, which went into effect in 2020, which explicitly called FGM a form of child abuse, gender discrimination, and violence. The Stop FGM Act of 2020 allows federal authorities to prosecute people who carry out or conspire to carry out FGM and increase the maximum prison sentence from 5 to 10 years. And while the 2018 ruling previously dismissed the charges against 3 mothers, including 2 Minnesota women, who prosecutors said tricked their 7-year-old daughters into thinking that they were coming to Metro Detroit for a girls' weekend, but instead went through this quote-unquote religious procedure, which is horrific. Now, the federal prosecutors are attempting to revive this case through a different angle. So they're now trying to charge the defendants with conspiracy to lie, obfuscate what they did, hide what they did, and intimidate others into doing the same. So again, obstructing a federal investigation. And their defense is saying that this is basically vindictive, that they're now all these years later trying to again throw new charges against or new indictments against these people, because they're saying that the prosecution is just bitter over the fact that their case was decimated, to use their words, in a federal court. Personally, after reading this article, which details the nationwide network, it details exactly the testimonies of several young girls, what they went through. I don't prosecutors use whatever means possible, okay? Like, I want them to face some punishment. That's a very emotional part of my brain, but it's throw the book at them. Throw what you can at them. If we end up getting these people on obstruction, not actually the fact they mutilated these children, get it. Al Capone got taken down for taxes, not murder. Like, you know,
right.
Let's do what we can.
Do they still have their license, their medical license?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I sure hope not. I haven't seen that detail in the articles I was reading.
I would be like losing my mind if they, after all this, they still managed to keep their medical license. That would be okay. I do want to highlight a few comments in live chat. Can I move to that, or do you have anything else
go for it
about the story? Because the reason why I'm asking is because we're moving away from the story itself, right? Likim is saying, what truth is there that FGM is actual practice that has nothing to do with Islam? it has a lot to do with Islam, and the people who say that it has nothing to do with Islam is because they point to FGM, or female genital mutilation, happening in um, in some African countries, among communities that are not Muslim, to say that this is a cultural thing and is not a religious thing. That is not a good argument. There are many things that are in Islam that are practiced that are also common among some cultures outside of Islam. Just because something is practiced culturally outside of Islam, it doesn't mean that it's not Islamic practice, right? When it comes to the different Sunni Islamic schools of thought, the 4 Islamic schools of thought, some of them allow it, and some of them suggest it, like promote it, and some of them mandate it, right? So it depends on which Islamic school of thought you refer to. None of them ban it, by the way. So it's either like heavily suggested or demanded, obligatory. I don't think anything in Shia Islam. I might be wrong about this. Nothing I've seen. Maybe there is in Shia Islam as well, but it's mostly, I think, a Sunni Islamic practice. There are hadiths referring to this. Some of them are not very strong hadiths, but they are good enough to be taken seriously, right? So there are different degrees of hadith authenticity. How authoritative a hadith is in Islam has different degrees. But it has been, so the people that come up with Islamic rulings, they do take authentic hadiths into account, but they also take other less authentic hadiths into account, hadiths that are not proven to be wrong, but they're still serious enough to be taken into account, and they come up with practices that are considered other people supposed to be following. And many Islamic schools of thought, Sunni Islamic schools of thought, based on those hadiths that exist, will say that yes, you have to do FGM on girls, right? So it is Islamic practice. So if you say this is not Islamic because other people do it as well, you don't understand how the influence that religion has on this is that it makes it more prominent, and it also makes it harder to challenge, right? It's cultural. Yes, this does exist outside of Islam, but what religion does when it announces that this is something Islamic and people do it, because for people who say that this has nothing to do with Islam because there's no direct, they say well, this hadith has been challenged, this hadith is I don't know, it's not sahih or whatever. They don't understand how religion works. For you to say something Islamic, all you have to show is the high number of people who say that they do this because of Islam, right? That by itself, even if you had 0 hadith on this in Islam, the fact that many people do this practice, and their argument is this is our religious practice, that by itself will make this an Islamic thing. Maybe not as directly as Islamic as some other things that you could not only find hadith for it, but also Quranic verses for it. It wouldn't be as direct as that. But when religion is used as an excuse for, even, let's say something was completely a cultural practice, but now religion is used as a way to defend it, well, religion is now being used. So it is making it connected to that religion. And again, when religion is used to defend a practice as horrible as this, it becomes so much harder to challenge and to eradicate because of the position that religion has in society. Religious privilege creates a wall around these cultural practices that becomes legally, harder to attack, right? So when you say, is this Islamic or is this not Islamic? This is definitely Islamic. To what degree is Islamic? Is it only Islamic? No, it's not only Islamic. Is it in the Quran? No, it's not in the Quran. Do we have hadith for it? Yes, we do have hadith for it. Is the hadith the strongest hadith? No, it's not the strongest hadith. Would it still be Islamic even if it wasn't the strongest hadith? Yes, as long as religion is somehow used as a way to defend this practice, then it's connected to the religion in some way. And again, it's not as directly Islamic as some other things, but it becomes, religion will become an added influence that makes it much harder to challenge. And when it comes to female genital mutilation, Islam is so connected to this. Like, again, it's not a one-on-one relationship, but Islam has made this. Would this problem exist without Islam? Yes. If this problem would exist without Islam, would it be even as close to as bad as it is right now? Because without Islam, no, it wouldn't. Islam has made this a much wider practice and much harder to challenge. That's if I want to describe the relationship of FGM to Islam, this would be it. So the answer is not always like yes, no. Sometimes the answer is a lot more complicated.
Yeah, I think you explained that very well.
Oh, thank you. Secular rarity. I'm going to just read this one last thing. Saying secular rarity, saying, yes, Armin, just like you can argue Christianity doesn't hate LGBTQ people, but you got to explain that to all the people who say I hate them because of my religion, and that's it. Yeah, like for example, yeah, it's harder to, there are easier things in the Bible that you could directly relate to the bad practices in Christianity. Like it's like so easy to connect them. But there are other things that you have to explain how Christianity is responsible for it. It's like, it's not as direct, right? Or like the way child abuse in churches, in Christianity, or in Christian churches, right? Again, you can't find Bible verses that is directly teaching that. But is Christianity responsible for those crimes? Yes, it is. But again, it's more complicated than the things that are directly being condoned in the Bible. Anyways, I think I spent too much time on this, but I think it was important, right?
Oh, no,
by the way,
agree.
before we go to
I agree.
before we go to the next news, I just want to also acknowledge how much detail you added to how much context you provided for us to understand what this news was about. Like everything I say, like you're like, well, no, but this happened and this happened, and you have like, guys, you have no idea how much time Susanna spends to make sure that she understands the different aspects of a story before she comes here and explains it to us.
Or if I
and
don't
even
understand something, I make sure to tell you guys.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like even after looking at everything, she's so good at showing her skepticism, and she's saying, "Oh, well, based on my understanding, well, this is what I've saw, and I might be incorrect." Like she does so much research, and she comes here, and she's still careful to be skeptical about the claims she's making. She's so good at this, and thank you. I just want to acknowledge the time that she spends on this. You guys are spoiled. Like she's doing the research and she's dumbing it down for all of us, and she's simplifying it, and she's coming here and explaining it to all of us for free. This stuff takes time.
Oh, you guys are so sweet.
Blankman is saying best CEO, and Secular is saying Susanna kills it every week. Blankman, yeah, guys, make sure you thank Susanna for her work every time.
You deserve thanks too. We were benefiting from your 15 plus years of doing this. That's not nothing.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe. Link in the description below.